and they're making some serious demands. What do you think of those demands? Do you think that Donald Trump is in any position to where he's going to genuflect to these crazy demands that we need to get out of there and give them all this money and all this crazy stuff?
Well, I mean, you could say it a couple of different ways. First off, maybe they're not serious yet. They aren't in the real world. And, are they expecting aliens to land and save them from what's coming? Are they expecting, some kind of messianic arrival by pushing it to the outer limits, which, by the way, is part of that whole religion? They have to bring the world to a place where it's about to be completely destroyed, and then the Messiah comes back at the last second. So that is not as far-fetched as it at first sounds. When you have somebody or a group that's at that level, you do have to be careful with them. They're on essentially a suicidal, showing off to each other in a suicidal mode, who can be the most, out there. And maniacs do maniac stuff, and there's no middle ground. But that's why the Iranian people are just so frustrated. These people have had the power, the guns, the control, and then they have no restraint, really. One of the things that to put it into the right understanding, several years ago, Iran has the fastest growing Christian population on the planet and has for some time. And this is the land of Esther. This is where Daniel is buried. The prophet Daniel is buried in Persia. Remember, Babylon fell and Daniel went to Persia and died there. And so there's quite a connection even to the Jews in modern Israel and classic historically speaking. So, but with this fastest growing Christian population, after the suppression of the people trying to rise up during the early part of the Obama administration back there in 2010 and 11, they were crazy. I mean, they killed, they slaughtered, they were horrendously brutal, especially on the women. Unbelievable in Iran. And the people got totally serious at a certain point here about 7-8 years ago. And the mullahs and their families got told in no uncertain terms, you threaten my mom, my grandma, my sister, we know where your mom, your grandma, your sister live, and we will wipe you out. And this was said to police chiefs, to military persons, and there was a couple tests, and they made the point that they were not going to be, they had been get along, go along, and not confrontational. At that point where they began to respond and be very hyper-aggressive, essentially an underground, kind of think of a French underground there in Iran, it cooled down quite a bit, and you didn't have quite as serious of the repression or the trials and things like that for a period of time. Now that the fight has been on, and you've got 30,000, acknowledged as having been killed during this time period, and probably more realistically during the protests, something closer to 60 or 70,000 dead. With that in mind, this period where the mullahs and Khomeini's son have now taken power again is very important, because the people have a hard challenge. Are they going to fight through this while they have this moment of opportunity? And go back to what Trump has said several times. This is the opportunity for the people of Iran to throw off these dictators, these people that are ruling them, but really aren't the will of the Iranian people. And taking the guns away from these people, taking the tools for terrorism away from them. They've been terrorizing the whole world. Remember, while Iran, since the fall of the Shah and Khomeini came in, and then Khomeini after him, they have been in places all over the world where millions have died. Just in the Congo, 20 million died while they were there with China and other very militant Islamic groups supervising the killing of millions of people there in the Congo. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this. The Congo is a Christian stronghold. Very little Muslims live in that area. And so when they came in to do what they did, you had unarmed populations that were fairly simplistic. The pygmies still live in the trees, literally, and other similar groups. So with that in mind, these Islamic groups came in and just rained terror through these regions and into areas of neighboring states. So Iran was right there with all of that, supporting it, tied into Somalia, tied into South Africa, plus all the stuff over in South America coming in through Venezuela into all of the neighboring states. And so getting Iran under control is not an option, it's a must if you want to get to world peace, if you will, the very things that Trump is saying he's going to do. And he will raise the bar as far as you have to raise the bar. They're threatening us even with nuclear. Okay, well, then you got to put an end to it at some point in time. You can't just sit there forever and let them continue to get stronger and stronger. They're sitting there saying they're going to use nukes. Okay, well, we're taking them serious. That's not going to be allowed. So we're not going to wait till you actually finally get the chance to do it. We're going to come in, clip your wings, and stop you. And act like, we're supposed to just let them raise the bar with these threats and not do anything. No, that's asinine. That's stupid. And even in our community, where people are acting like we're overreaching, President Trump is going too far. Excuse me? They're telling you you're going to use nukes. By the way, Iran has fantastic, amazing, unbelievable technical prowess in the biological realms too. So don't think it's just the nuclear threat. They have other ways that they're threatening also, and you just got to go in and shut them down. And the Iranian people are not good on the whole with what this crowd that's in power want to do. This isn't the Iranian people. This is a very specific cult within Iran of this Islamic operations. So,
yeah, there's still a lot of factions that are very pro whatever it is they're trying to achieve. Obviously, we've seen the footage. I don't know if it's real footage, if it's artificial intelligence, if it's old footage. We don't know. We have no way of knowing. But there seems to be a lot of people that want to be liberated. Is it true that maybe some people like the enslavement aspect of in Iran to indefinite?
well, the one thing you have to picture, like even the Jews, the Israelis, the children of Abraham, the children of Jacob, they were in slavery in Egypt. They went in free people. Joseph saved Egypt when he interpreted the dream, 7 good years, 7 bad years, store everything up. The wealth all came to Egypt because of what Joseph did. Then over time, the later pharaohs forgot. Joseph forgot what was done and then enslaved the people because they were growing so fast in population and they saw them as a threat. So by degrees, they became slaves in Egypt, the land that they, as a people were, through Joseph saved. When they left Egypt and they went out and got out into the Sinai, before that, when they got to the Red Sea, which was parted, and they went through dry land, there was complaints on several occasions by some of the leaders of the various tribes that Moses, God himself, had brought them out to the Red Sea to die, and that they were better off when they were slaves in Egypt because, the military wasn't threatening them day and night with their lives and all that. There was always rabble rousers that, they're out in the desert wandering around. And their brains weren't working right. And so there was this attitude that, if we just went back to Egypt, at least there we'd have a roof over our head. We wouldn't be moving around all the time. Even though the Egyptians were taskmasters, it was better for us there as slaves than it was to be free people wandering in the desert. But of course, the only thing I can say there is that was never God's intent. They were supposed to go from Egypt into the Promised Land. What happened was when they got to the banks of the Jordan to go cross over into the Promised Land, they sent spies into the land, which God never told them to do. They looked around, said, yep, it's the land of milk and honey. It's a good idea. So, yes, it's beautiful. However, one problem, we saw that there's giants in the land, and we were but grasshoppers in their sight. So when they decided it was too dangerous, too scary to go in there with all those giants, then they had to go wander around in the desert for 40 years because they wouldn't go into the Promised Land. And so they were out of God's will. And God never intended for them to be wandering around out in the desert until that generation of scaredy cats and ne'er-do-wells, naysayers, who just wanted to go back to Egypt. Till they died out, they couldn't go in the land. And the only people that went in with Joshua and Caleb, the two spies that came back with a good report and says, yeah, we can take these giants, no problem, God's with us. Nobody over 20 at the time that the spies came back went into the Promised Land. They all died out in the desert. It was only those children, 20 and younger, who grew up out there in the Sinai, who weren't adults in Egypt, that went into the Promised Land. Well, they hadn't been inculcated. They hadn't become so immersed, baptized in the Egyptian ways. They were, programmed. They had a mindset to go in and take the land, and they did. So when you say, is there, within the Iranian people, is there a component of people that would be okay with the way it is, with the oppression, with the, torments that the Muslim leadership have been imposing on them? Yeah, there probably is, but it's not. When you look at the numbers, that's why this Christian, I don't even want to call it a revival. This is new in Iran, this move of God, the fastest growing Christian population on the planet. We have a number of people out of Iran that have been traveling to another country. I don't know if I even want to say it, and getting all sorts of teaching and training and learning stuff, and then going back into Iran for about 15 years. And they have been taking Western ideas back in there. Iran was a very modern country in the Mideast before the Shah fell. And, they want to go back to a Western ideal. The parents and grandparents have told the kids what it was like before, and they get it. A lot of the kids travel out of Iran, see the rest of the world, and they're done with it. They want to go to move on. So,
Yeah. One question that comes up a lot We have all the oil we'll ever need. We have an overwhelming amount of overstock of oil barrels. Why in the world are gas prices going up here in the United States specifically? I mean, the Strait of Hormuz really should be an insignificant situation for us. Why are we getting why are we paying $3 and 79 cents for regular and $4.89 for super here in Florida? It's ridiculous.
Well, you go back to the gas crisis when that happened in the mid 70s, and we never had an oil crisis then either. What we had was a refinery crisis, and you get people arguing about this all the time. Look at what's going on out in California, where they've regulated the refineries to the point where the refineries have said, okay, we're out of here, we're done. They tax them to death. They're leaving California. They're going to have to get all their gas trucked in, railed in, okay? And gas is harder to move than oil is, believe me. It's much more volatile, much more dangerous, harder to move in pipelines, etc. So California has engineered itself with their political leadership into a hell of a corner. We have lots of oil here. And by the way, this is the other thing that you kind of have to have in mind. Oil of the type that most of these refineries are using, that society is using, it's contracted for those refineries years in advance, because you have to have all of the proper materials to crack oil. Oil from different locations requires a different process to be able to refine it and use it. And so oil from Venezuela, the cracking process and refining process is different, say, than oil that comes out of Texas or Libya, other places. And a lot of times they'll do a blend where they'll take oil out of Nigeria and blend it with oil out of Libya or Texas or something like that to make it more manageable or handleable by a refinery. So when you see oil prices spike like they did just over the last 3 weeks, oil was down there pretty consistently right at 60 during this administration, and spiked up to just under 120 and then back down overnight a couple weeks ago, and it's been down as low as in the 80s. It's up to around 100 right now. But that's for current delivery stuff. The reality is that most of the contracts were done at much lower numbers, a couple years ago, and that oil is still going to be delivered at the price that was already previously agreed, and the refineries are going to run. When they spike the price like they do, that's a little bit of profit taking. That's right. Taking advantage of the situation.
Sounds like greed to me, right? It sounds like a lot of greed. There's definitely plays a hand. But another question I have for you that I think you'll probably already know. There are several big podcasters. First of all, these guys constantly poo-poo the Q movement. They don't understand it. They don't have the horsepower or the brain power. They're not, let's say, highly intellectual enough to be able to understand it. They have turned on Trump on a dime. Are they being paid from Iran? Do you think that is a possibility, that Iran is going after some of our big podcasters without giving them any esquire?
I don't think that's exactly what's going on. If there's anybody getting some money, it's money going into a couple advertisers or something like that. I think it's that there is money. I've warned about this over the last many months, especially the last several weeks, that there is a huge push aimed very exactingly, precisely at the Patriot / mega Q community. And the reason that they're targeting them is because they're finding some vulnerability. They're picking it by issue, and this literally is this globalista crowd that's doing this. It's the Soros money. It's the Green Movement money run by the banks out of England. It's aimed at targeting anything that Trump does. You saw it start with the ICE stuff. You saw it when, for example, we arrested some of the leaders of some of the gangs. Trump, within the first minutes, while he was still in the inaugural process, I've mentioned this before, I had people texting me that they'd just gotten orders to report. And, while Trump is still speaking. And then they reported, within the next day or two, and were deployed to back up civilian state and federal authorities while they went in and arrested a number of the gang leaders like Trende Araga and some of the ones out of Honduras and other locations who Trump had designated as terrorist organizations. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why you didn't get gangs going crazy all across the country, the way that people were saying it was going to happen on shows like Nino's and others, these experts, it didn't happen because we went in and clipped the top leadership, and then the second tier people, we went and got them also. Remember, you had the apartment complexes that had been completely taken over. Correct. By Trende Araga up there in Colorado, and similar at other places. And then immediately after we picked those guys up, and those guys went to Gitmo. Okay, you could go look in the social media, and they went out of their way to post stuff where these guys are in the orange jumpsuit going right through the doors there at Gitmo, and then they were farmed back to other countries who had to take them back. Because they were sent here on a mission to cause chaos and disruption here in America. And with that in mind, we've been keeping these terror cells on the run. The second tier people, they were trying to move ammunition from a number of locations back up to the Midwest. And we, miraculously, gosh, this van has got its headlights in my eyes, and it's like won't put the low beams on. We should pull it over, see what's going on. That's a great cover story, okay? What the reality is we were following these guys when they bought, gazillion dollars worth of ammunition, loaded up the vans with it. We're headed for freaking Minneapolis and Chicago and other locations. And the van's so weighted down, ammunition is made of what? Lead. and so it's sitting so low that the headlines are, shooting everybody right in the face like the high beams run. Sure. And the cops use that as the excuse, but the reality is we had intel because the heads of these gangs gave us everything. Right. They would do anything to keep from going back home. They do anything from going to prison for the rest of their life back home. Okay. Yeah. So we've had cooperation on a lot of fronts. Yeah. And so people have to understand there's a huge push to affect our community and get us to, lose our roots. And Trump's doing a fantastic job. This is very edgy ground that we're on. And the other thing, anybody here that's, wants to go, kick Trump in the ass because he's doing something wrong. Remember this, we are threading a needle here to get everything. Stop Iran from supporting and pushing terrorist operations all over the planet that are killing huge numbers of people. By the way, over half the people that died in the Congo were under the age of 20. Right now, today, people don't even know it. You got over 2.5 million refugees in Uganda up on the Congo border, and over half of them are under the age of 18. The UN cut off food supply support for them months and months ago. So there's been all sorts of efforts to keep them okay. But those are all kids. What are they supposed to do? Where are they going to go get a job? How are they supposed to survive? Go back in the Congo? The fight's not over there yet. We're still wrestling through all sorts of issues there, and it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But also remember, beyond all these other things, we still have a threat that is not immaterial. And in fact, even the stuff coming out of Iran right now, they're intonating in their conversation that they have nuclear material, that they have material for bombs that we're not aware of.
Correct.
So they're still saying they got it.
Yeah.
And of course, the kiss up was going on there in South Africa. By the way, when South Africa was hijacked and stolen from the South African people, same way Iran was, when that happened through election fraud, by the way, they had enough nuclear material to build 6 bombs. South Africa and Iran were doing naval maneuvers and joint training as recently as 3 months ago, still getting ready to do something. South Africa with Ramaphosa, he's the one that Trump kicked in the ass right there and pantsed right there in the Oval Office over the killing of the white farmers. Yeah. And the president was like, oh, I haven't seen this video before. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Gosh, this is news to me.
Exactly.
Hey
guys, don't forget thejennifermac.com. Thejennifermac.com. I'm still trying to convince him that he should make his Matador jacket into leather, and I'll be willing to pay whatever he charges for it. I don't care. I want one in leather at some point. I will be able to convince him, I'm sure. But let's talk a little bit about, the resources of China and Russia are weathered very, very thin. For them to be able to pull a successful blockade, Russia would have to be militarily not, bogged down in another country like Ukraine, and China would have to be, obviously have a surplus of tremendous amount of cash, and that's not true as well. So if there was able to be a blockade in the Straits of Hormuz, do you think that this would cause a worldwide crisis to the point of a nuclear war for real, or maybe not really?
Well, I don't know. Maybe what we ought to do is get the French to come help us and change the name to the Strait of Hormuz. Vermouth.
There you go.
Yeah.
That'll probably be a big seller.
Well, of course, Trump wants to change it to the Strait of America too. So and by the way, the Ayatollah Khomeini, he was in exile in France up until he got to come over and when they kicked the Shah out, and there was the intelligence agencies and the families, these globalista crowds were behind putting in Khomeini there in Iran. So this didn't just happen organically with the Iranian people. This was engineered as part of a much bigger plan to create the chaos that we've had over the last 5 decades as a result of it. So it didn't just happen. The Iranian people have been victims in this, believe me.
Right.
So with that in mind, everybody take a deep breath. What is the purpose behind continuing the bombing right now? First of all, the leadership in Iran, they've dug in deeper. They've gone more radical. All of the head and shoulders shot. We took out Khomeini. We took out, when they came together at Qom to vote for their next leader, we took that group out. So now they're down to the third, fourth tier of people to be able to run things. That group, they're all beating their chest. They're all, fluffing their feathers to show that they're tougher than the guys before them that are now gone. If we'd been in charge, it would never have happened because we'd have been even more hard-nosed than they were, and This is all happened because we weren't mean enough. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what's now in play is they're trying to up things, and they're making these huge threats. First of all, that Trump has to remove American troops from the entire Mideast, and or they're going to destroy us all. Well, if they could have destroyed us all, they'd have done it already. For example, they had 300,000 missiles in Lebanon aimed at Israel. They had 100,000 hidden in Gaza aimed at Israel. 400,000 missiles total. Wow. They had some up there in the Sinai, or in Syria, but we got those quite some time ago. Here's the problem. They don't ship the missiles from Iran into that area around Israel with fuel in them. So, because it's hard to transport, very dangerous. And they'd ship them in pieces and assemble them on the site. They didn't ship it as one big long missile body. They'd ship a bunch of the motor systems. They'd ship various components, guidance systems, and then they were assembled on the site. So they get all these in there, and then they got to get fuel in them. Well, if you remember several years ago when Beirut had this huge explosion, Beirut, Lebanon, at the port facility, the material they're making rocket fuel out of, solid rocket fuel out of, was this fertilizer, ammonium dioxide. And they would refine that. They had an underground facility there at the port nearby, and they're refining this fuel, adding additives to it. They had German manufacturing systems to make this fuel, and then they're trucking it out a truckload at a time to various locations and loading the fuel in these rockets aimed at Israel. Well, Beirut blew up very dramatically.
Yeah.
And the factory, plus all of the material to make the fuel, blew up very dramatically, destroyed Beirut. I mean, even now, it's almost nothing has been repaired that's there for the most part.
Yeah.
And so they're beating their chest, but there's not much in there. They're, doing all the scary talk, but there's not much there. Now, China has been moving stuff to Iran, technology, all sorts of things that they need to build this stuff out. But we've kind of cut China off in large measure from being able to do stuff there in Iran. China was getting oil for pennies on the dollar out of Iran for sharing technology. And because Iran's in all these sanctions, they couldn't sell their oil without issues. Same thing with Russia. Both of them were getting stuff. China was buying oil, and then Iran was using some of that to pay Russia for technology and get it out on the open market. Now, the person or the group that's the most injured on the oil side is China. Plus, what China was doing was they were building out the port facilities where they were making the port facilities able to handle Chinese tankers, technology, personnel, the whole schmear. What is America actually bombing? See, for the Iranian people, if we destroy Iran too much, what are they going to have to work with to put it back together? So we're surgically dismantling locations tied to China. The places that China's been building out, that they can then manage Iran from, are all going away. And we have zero interest in letting any of that stay there. Part of the deal is this, see, because of international trade agreements and commerce and everything else, if China has a building, a facility that they paid for that's there, they would have a claim to come back in and redeem some of their property or still do follow through in the trade agreement like that.
Exactly.
In a act of war, a time of war, if those facilities and locations end up being, victims in the ongoing war, then China loses its toehold, its grip into Iran. If we come in and help rebuild it after the war, which is what we'll do, and help Iran to pull its act together again, we will then take a trade with them for, so they end up paying for it and own it after it's done. We'll bridge them through, but they'll end up paying us back for every last cent that we use to rebuild Iran. And get it back on its feet again. And, that's exactly how Trump will do it. And it'll be excellent because it won't burden the American people. And it'll make it so that the Iranian people don't have legal issues on ownership, investments of China into places in Iran or Russia for that matter.
Yeah. You think that this guy's capable of running Iran? I understand he's really not even been on TV yet, unless I missed something. And I understand he's also pretty busted up from injuries from the original hit on his dad, etc. So he might not be literally physically capable to run anything right now.
I think he'll fight through, and he's got plenty of people around him to support him. He's a figurehead that the rest of that radicalized group would agree with and recognize. And at a certain level, now that we're at the third tier, we don't have to really take that one out. And by the way, it's not the U.S. that's attacked the leadership in Iran. The fight has been broken into two sections. We handle facilities, military, infrastructure things that we want to take out. The Israelis have been taking out the leadership, the radicals, etc. And by the way, they've been working with the Iranian people. The Iranian people literally have been able, all the way back to when we did the nuke strike, but this capability has been building out, to radio in, if you will, call in airstrikes at specific locations where the Iranian military would have a stronghold, or where there's like all the anti-aircraft stuff that was taken out back when we bombed the nuclear facility. That was Iranians identifying the targets in collusion with Israelis that were there in the area on the ground to take out the military targets back when we, bombed the nuclear facility. And that has been continuing, identifying targets, including leadership and where they're at, to where we were putting missiles into an exact apartment in 25 and 30-story buildings to take out leadership and their security teams with exacting precision. So this has been, for the most part, done very surgically to have minimum civilian casualties. Unlike what the mullahs have done when they were just mowing down protesters in the street by the hundreds. So, we've worked very hard because we understand the Iranian people are with us on this. We're trying to save lives, not to hurt them.
Interesting. Let's make a reminder here real quick. The Junior Quantum Summit, guys, full steam ahead. It's going to be absolutely an epic event. I mean, we gave the plans on how to build your own free energy device, and we got a couple of spooks in the audience. Great, wonderful. Maybe more spooks will buy tickets to come this time. Who cares? We're not afraid of them. And we're going to have a free energy device on stage demonstrated the very first day.
Well, just so people know, Stan Deo did some fantastic work, and it's, the technology is there for accessing energy that's flowing across the surface of the earth. So this isn't woo-woo. There is some very interesting things there. Deep breath, some more efficient, effectual, etc. There is an investment. You could say at a technical level, we all survive every day on free energy. You get sunlight. The world runs on sunlight. Okay, yeah. If you're going to utilize it in an electrical system or something like that, well, you probably got to make an investment in some solar panels. I remember one of my friends years ago built his whole entire home around, he had a huge piping system under his house in rock where he was storing heat in the daytime with water that was heated on panels on the roof, and then at night circulating that water through the house to have a nice even temperature. And he did have to, run electric pumps to circulate that water, but even the pumps he had on a battery bank so that he could function. He lived in an area that was very cold. He did use heat in the winter time because it'd get 10, 15 below where he was at. And so he'd supplement it a little bit, but it was still, his power bill over the course of the whole year for heating was very, very thin. Well, so it wasn't free energy, but it was very, very low cost. There's an investment that is required for most all of these things in the equipment. And so you're just trying to find much more efficient ways of tapping what's there for the earth. You can grab, we have properties where there's underground hot springs. And so if you can tap down to where the hot springs are coming up at, you have free heat for your house, greenhouse, whatever you want to do. One of the biggest tomato farmers in the country is located up north of Fairbanks, about 50 miles out of Fairbanks, and he heats his greenhouses with tomatoes, his hot houses, with water that's from hot springs there in Alaska, under the ground, quite a distance down. It just has pipes go down to it, brings up the hot water, and heats his greenhouses. So, there's some technology, there's some investment, but this isn't. There's different levels of tapping some of the energy supply. And of course, what Tesla was doing was just adding a pulse to the flow of energy across the crust of the earth from south to north, and allowing that we could do things to charge the ground and tap that energy using the crust of the earth like a big battery storage device. So there's lots of stuff here that it's worth a conversation. And if you've got something new technology-wise that is making sense, then I think that's fun and worthwhile. And by the way, we're in the Trump administration. We're not being fought the way it once had been being done on new ideas and technology and like that. I wouldn't expect any opposition at any level right now. The people that were fighting the citizens on some of the stuff which was happening are
Obama, Biden.
They're not in the same zone right now. They were trying to choke back the energy use.
Totally.
And so that we would have to buy their green energy and, on their green meter. And they were green with envy with anybody that had any other way but theirs. So they're getting their ass kicked. Relax.
While we're on the subject, Juanito, I've been going down this rabbit hole for the last 5 days, and I can't get enough information. Have you ever heard of a concept of building a home with rammed earth?
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody knows about this. Yet the wall of China was built on rammed earth. It's still here today. The pyramids built on rammed earth. They're still here today. They don't want you to know about it because your energy bill is going to go down by like 98%, number one. You never need heating and you never need air conditioning, ever. I mean, and you're surrounded by earth, which is, it's like you're being grounded all the way around. The energy is through the roof. I'm thinking about buying a lot and maybe potentially building the next Staying Alive facility with rammed earth because of the energy field. Plus, I got a few other things that I'm working on that will increase that energy by a factor of 24,000 times. Not bullshit, real. So, and I can't get enough. I mean, like, I want to get somebody who is into the rammed earth, a contractor who does rammed earth homes, to come to the Junior Quantum Summit on the 28th and the 29th and come on stage and tell people about. Everybody needs to know about rammed earth. I want to make sure if anybody knows anybody out there that's into rammed earth and building these structures, I would like to have them on my show. Okay, that I am so into it. It's unbelievable. But anyway,
there's certain types of material that are more favorable than others. But in any area around the country, you've got locations that are usually pretty convenient where some of the material is more available than others, and it's a conversation.
Well,
I mean, there's
that's in your backyard. It's got
there's some that's better than others for different reasons, and you can use, sometimes you can use what you have right there in the yard readily. Other times you want to do a blend because there's certain properties that you're looking for, and so you'd have to just do an assessment. For example, right down in your neck of the woods, the guy Scallion, who built the gardens there that has all of the unusual properties. I think it was Edward Scallion. I forget what he called his little facility there. But he chose that exact location. A lot of people thought because it was exactly within a certain point in the energy grid moving across the earth. No, what it was the material that was there that in that exact area had to do with the limestone like that.
Yeah, well, Florida is great for you. You know why? The first 2 inches is sand. After that, there's clay. And then you just need to put some gravel and some little bit of lime and cement into, or 12% cement, and then you just pack it in really, really tight with the machines, the vibrating machines, and they pack it in really, really tight. And the actual designs of it and the waves, gorgeous, absolutely stunning. I'm in love with rammed earth construction. I really am.
Well, the only other thing I would say is that you can also, I think, there's a conversation to be had with using a little bit more of a slurry of the same material, but doing it as a printed home, and a little bit easier to work with, even though you got to spend, $50,000 for the actual machinery. You can spend $100,000, but I think you get pretty close if you start looking at it, going at it that way. And the only other thing I like about doing it with a printed system is for various reasons. If you're going from the energy side, just like you have a sheath around the wire on stuff where you're running circuits like that, you can run a intermediate material to do a layered effect, one or two layers of foam in there, or other similar materials between the printed areas, and you're literally just running extrusion for the whole thing. It's pretty amazing. And the stuff that they come up with is unbelievable.
I'm actually surprised you know about it. Is there anything you don't know?
There's reasons why this, I'm very familiar with this, and it works in so many areas of the world. The whole idea is the transportation cost after manufacturing for a lot of the materials is just outrageous. So if you're in the right areas, say for a number of the islands or in Africa and other places, having the ability to use the local materials with just a little bit of brought in to help it is, fantastic.
Yeah.
And keep the costs down, and people need homes. So yeah,
absolutely.
and sturdy. I mean, these things aren't, as you're describing. Everybody needs to understand these are amazing homes.
Fireproof, earthquake-proof, Category 5 tornadoes. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, the biggest thing that is actually the best way to do them, in my opinion, is think of an exoskeleton. You have some of the materials that are there from an insulation standpoint that you add in, and then you have the strength like a crab with an exoskeleton around the soft tissue innards. And if you have two of them, it's just like an I-beam, where what makes an I-beam light and strong is that you have a vertical rail. The taller the I-beam is, the more rigidity it has and weight bearing capacity it has. So it's a structure we use like an aircraft or the space station and things like that. If you kind of think about those things, what we're trying to do is build a structure that is relatively light for a bunch of reasons, and yet has great strength to withstand even a Category 6 or the vibration of a large earthquake. And so you have to be able to do things to let that energy dissipate in certain ways. And so even where you have a Great Wall of China, if you look, it has expansion joints in it. It has features that allow it to sway and not come unraveled, and to send energy further away back up the line. And so anytime you're doing something like this, you need to have the ability to get the energy out of the building if you've got a large quake and room to move internally. So there's amazing stuff that these guys have come up with in the designs that make them survive unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, truly. And there's also now they're moving towards these big machines that actually will print a block or a cinder block, like solid, that have like Lego type components underneath where they just stack on top of each other. And you have a hole where you can put rebar in it. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Just amazing stuff. I mean, the machinery, there's a machine that I was looking at, you could build one of these homes like in days, because you're actually building the blocks that dry out. Once they're dried, they're as hard as anything. You can't even, if you shoot it with a 50 caliber, your 50 caliber projectile will not go through it. And they're amazing. So you can actually stack them on top of each other like blocks, and anybody could build, any dodo bird can actually build a house.
In this type of stuff, more often than not, what you actually want to add to it, the material you want to add fibers to it, that those fibers have tensile strength. And so, for example, when you're doing carbon fiber manufacturing, you have a lot of excess that ends up getting cut, isn't used from the patterns that are done. That carbon fiber material is not waste, technically. You just run it through a shredder that breaks it up into the various fibers, of different lengths. And when you put it into materials like this, it acts like, rebar in concrete is to be able to spread the energy out through the concrete so it doesn't crack, and retains its strength even under an earthquake or something like that. When you have it at a macro level instead of this large level with the fibers, then it increases the strength immensely, and that's what's often used. There's other things that are probably better with longer strands, and in these materials. That's why I like the extrusion too, because you get a much more even distribution of the strands in the printed systems if they're adding that fiber for strength and like that. And then again, being able to send energy, like say, a bullet or a mortar or something like that. It's like what we do when we armor glass. Glass has high tensile strength.
Correct.
And so, but it's very brittle and it can break. So if I add a film on the surface of the glass, a plastic film, if something hits it, even a sledgehammer, yes, you can break the glass underneath it, but it spreads the energy across the surface of the glass.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to put a hole in that glass, even though you can shatter it a few hits. And if you armor it on both sides, and if you increase the thickness of the material, it can become extremely strong, ballistic material. And the glass is, glass on its side, you can take a piece of glass by weight, and it can carry at a bare ass minimum 10 times if you have a proper grip on the glass, 10 times the weight that the same size sheet of steel can carry. And then if you, it's just very fragile. If you tap it on the side, it can shatter it. But just straight gripping vertically, it has incredible tensile strength. If you add the plastic to it, you transfer that tensile strength into strength across the whole surface that can absorb energy and not break as easily, and still have that tremendous holding capacity. So if you get right down to it, and this is why I'm saying this, while you can do it with the ground itself, adding an exoskeleton of a glassified material, a ceramic, if you will, the amount of material you need to have the same effect goes down radically. If you needed a concrete block or an earthen block that's a foot deep, you can cut that down to maybe only needing 4 or 5 inches with a simple coating of little chicken mesh wire or something like that, and it'll have the same strength and be much lighter on the ground for, not sinking into the ground or shifting and things like that. So anyway, a lot of
The beautiful thing about this concept is that if your backyard dirt qualifies to build you a home, and you take a workshop, and you're pretty handy, you take a couple of workshops, you could build it yourself. But here's the beautiful thing: not only is it energy efficient beyond belief, but it will cost you 60 to 70% less than the building a traditional home. But the people who are in the cement business and the sheetrock business and all these boxes that we live in that are toxic, and they have all kinds of chemicals and things you're not supposed. That's why we don't live. Not only the clothes, but we just found out that even the homes you guys live in are not healthy, and they don't want this to get out. Okay. They don't want this information to get out, but I'm going to get it out there because you know why?
Well, again, here's the place where you run into the biggest problems to building inspectors a lot of times. And the reason is because they're not trained to do that. And then the other thing is the banks have certain, things that they'll agree to with the appraisers like that. Exactly. And they're not able to. It's just part of the process. So you oftentimes, if you go to the bank to get a loan to build a house in a non-conventional way, they don't want to touch it. Exactly. Or they want some monstrous thing. It's the same thing with, or to get a permit, because now they don't understand it. It's not what they're trained on. So now they act like you're reinventing the wheel. So in some of the technologies, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying in part, we've found that going to the very modest steel framing that is commonly used in commercial construction. You use that steel framing, put it under tension against your foundation or floor. And then what you're now doing is you're adding the fill, and you can treat it like a insulation layer, when in reality it's also adding the rigidity, the insulation, everything else.
Yeah.
And they can't argue with you because it's now just being sheeted in a certain way, and even the banks don't fight it. So if you know how to kind of talk the language that they have to hear, you can do better. And of course, when you get the price down far enough doing it this way, once it's done, it's done. But it tends to sell for more than what other houses similarly done. And even the banks, once it's done, it's working, and you got a few utility bills or whatever to show for it, you end up being able to sell it. They just don't want to do the construction loans, and the companies don't want to reinvent the wheel with how they do their construction a lot of times. So you got to get the builders want to, they've got it timed out. They know what it is. They know the bank's going to finance it. They can get it done.
It's so funny you say that, because one of the people I sent it to was a good friend of mine, Ron, and he's one of the guys that comes to our Staying Alive Wellness Center. And the video, below the video, has all the resources of all the scientific data and everything that was done by people who are qualified, certified, et cetera, and that you can actually use those forms when you go to apply, so that they don't give you a hard time, because these are credentialed people that basically have tested everything from A to Z when it comes to building this type of structure. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey guys, don't forget Quantum Summit 1776.com. Reserve your seat. On the 27th, we're going to be at the Twisted Tides. You're going to see Mel Carmine on stage doing some serious karaoke, martinis, and cheese sticks and chicken wings, whatever. It's going to be a fun event between 6 and 11. That is in Cocoa Beach, Twisted Tides, right on the ocean. So you want to definitely be there. If you didn't get a ticket, can you come to the event? It's a public place. I can't stop you. Obviously, you can. So Twisted Tides, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. in Cocoa on the 27th of March. And then the 28th and the 29th will be the event, and it's going to be a jam-packed event. You're going to be absolutely flabbergasted with the information that we're going to release. And if I could find somebody that talks about or is a builder of this earth, what do I call it? Rammed earth. Okay, I would love to have somebody on stage, or if somebody knows somebody out there that builds rammed earth homes, please have them contact me at 786-704-8817. Also, if you need a large amount of XRP, that I'm your guy, okay, 10,000 or more. If you need silver, I can get you as much silver as you want for now. How long that's going to last, we don't know. 786-704-8817 is not for socializing, it's for business. Send me a text message. Thank you, Juanito. You're awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe we got off track and we start talking about these monolithic homes that are incredibly insulated. And I'm surprised you know anything about it, to be quite honest.
The one thing that everybody here needs to be mindful of is, of course, you're coming out to the event that I'm doing in Vegas a couple days before your event, and I appreciate that it's a very tight thing, but I want you to be able to talk authoritatively concerning what's coming in the bond market, and it's going to affect every person listening in a dramatic way as this builds out. We're trying to take the edge off of it. Even if you're looking at purchases of land or building or things like that, you may want to look at timing and not get caught flat-footed at this critical moment. And there's a reason why we push hard on the tangibles, but that doesn't include property, which is normally a good thing, of having material that will survive what's coming and then be able to reinvest. America's going to do great, but we got a really serious problem that's coming, and it's a lot of the reason why Trump even was brought in to run. Once you understand that, there's things that can be done to kind of prep and get out of the way, but you're not going to stop what's about to happen. And you'll get tuned up a bit on this when you come out here. And as I've said, and I'll just say it for listeners, I'll try to make it out to Florida somewhere in your event if I can. And it'll be a bit tight because I've got quite a few people coming in, and I'm staying there in Vegas to meet privately with other folks. And by the way, we have one thing that's breaking right now. O'Keefe, if you go over to his site, he's breaking something happening within the Indian tribes and like that. And we have,
love O'Keefe. I love
yeah, there's an aspect to that will be breaking during our meeting too. So
yeah, one last thing, Juanito, do you think this war is going to last another month?
Well, the war at some level is not going to be over for the next decade. And the reason is because the main fighting will come to an end. These guys want to lay down their weapons and, decide that they're not going to, fight to see everybody die. Great. But if they're not going to do that, then, they'll die. And, they want to fight to the death. Okay, well, we're here to, assist you.
Your wish is my commands.
I mean, look at how they keep telling the world how effective they've been against America. Do you realize how many of the American missiles have been completely destroyed over and over and over and over? And Iran hasn't, the mullahs, this crowd hasn't had to lift a finger. All they have to do is stick their chest out and, blab away and America's missiles, every time they hit one of these buildings in Iran, destroys our missile again. Darn it. Their buildings are destroying our missiles every day, and we can't, what are we supposed to do?
Totally correct. But I think we have technology that is even more advanced than those $50,000,
You missed the joke. You missed the joke.
Yeah, I guess I did. Maybe you'll explain it.
Their buildings are destroying our missiles.
Oh, their buildings are destroying our missiles. I got it. You just went over my head. I got so many things.
They don't have to fire the buildings. The buildings don't have to lift off or anything. They just keep destroying our missiles. They're very effective at destroying our missiles.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of the laser technology that we have that only costs us like less than $100 to shoot all of the stuff out of the sky?
Some of the stuff that we have is down to literally pennies for certain of the stuff. And of course, that's the whole point. Iran fired a couple thousand missiles at Israel, and a couple dozen got through. Well, what you didn't see, it's not just that we were using lasers, but the stuff you can't see, that it's the platforms that it's on, that's even cooler. So you gotta really kind of understand that. Where's that laser coming from anyway? Shazam! I didn't see that.
Yeah,
it just started somewhere over there.
By the way, you're in the movie. We got a nice clip of you talking about the straw man in the movie "Dear Mr. President, Show Me the Money," the movie about the straw man. Yeah. You're in the movie, brother. We got a nice clip of you talking about that. So people definitely want to watch the movie just because you're in it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll look forward to it. So
yeah, well, we'll send you a copy when it's ready, and we should launch it when there's not so much noise. We got distracted with Charlie's death when we launched on the 9th, and then on the 10th we didn't know that was going to happen. It just happened, right? But right now there's so much noise with all the wars and all this stuff. We got to pick the most opportune time to launch it properly to get the most bang for our buck.
Yep.
So, brother, I'll see you in Vegas in a few days.
All right, super.
You got it, brother.
Also, we've got a special deal over on the silver at
and thank you for
gumroad.com, so people can go over there if they want.
And thank you for allowing me to bring